is the Fuel Sports Network.
Behold the King of Kings.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
I'm dropping the hammer.
No, you're not.
And that's the bottom line.
Here, have a quarter and make a phone call.
I have wrestled with an alligator.
What?
I done tussled with a whale.
What?
I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
Funky butt loving. Did he say funky butt loving?
There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Let the big dog eat.
Woo! Whoa! Woo! Whoa! It's time!
Boy, howdy, wouldn't you know who won the pony? Welcome back to the Derek King Show. It's a day. The news came out, and obviously you've seen the headlines. The most despised, the most vilified umpire probably in the history of Major League Baseball. And not for only, but a handful of reasons. We're going to get into that and a couple other small things related to baseball and so on and so forth. But I just want to let you guys know that we are the Fuel Sports Network. We are on Amazon Fire, Roku, Facebook, X platform, everything you can imagine, everywhere in between, and fuelsportsnetwork.com. Make sure you go over there. You can watch this video feed live there, and you get it in all its full high definition digital glory, except for over there on those platforms that they kind of choke you down a little bit. All right. Also want to let you know that, guys, today we are brought to you by McDougalBats.com. Make sure you go use the referral code Fuel Sports Network. Get yourself a custom bat made by McDougalBats.com. Some of the strongest bats in the world, I know, because I have one that I purchased with my very own money. It is a wonderful bat. It's a wonderful product, and it's made right here in the US of A. Let's get down to it. You know, this Angel Hernandez thing, this has been one of those things that has been ongoing for a very, very long time. Let's make this clear. This has not been some kind of like overnight thing with Angel Hernandez and what has been going on with Major League Baseball. Years ago, and not all that too many years ago, he sued Major League Baseball. I'm not going to get into specific details. You guys could Google it, check it out. But there has been a tumultuous relationship between Angel Hernandez and MLB for quite some time. The reality of the matter is, here was this last show or the show before last that I was just doing. I said, hey, Major League Baseball, do you want to get rid of Angel Hernandez? Here's how you do it. Coincidentally, I guess they listened to my thought process, because boy, howdy, wouldn't you know who won the pony? Angel Hernandez has taken a settlement to retire from baseball. When the news first came out, he's settling. And this is via Front Office Sports. And I also want to credit AJ Perez, who contributed to this story too as well, by Margaret Fleming over on frontofficesports.com. Here you go. This is what exactly I said verbatim. You want to win. You want this guy out of the sport. He was intentionally, and I want to make this clear. I'm going to bring back up to the video scope right now, and I want to make this vehemently clear. This man despised his company that he worked for so badly. I firmly believe, this is an opinion, this is not based in fact. I want to stress that, opinion only. I believe that he was intentionally making bad calls in order for them to take action against him. Once he realized that there was a point in time that he wasn't going to get exactly what he wanted, Major League Baseball took me to heed in my warnings and my suggestions and said, just pay the man. You want him to go away? Pay the man. He'll go away. This is where we'll be at. And the truth of the matter is that in this situation in particular that you're looking at, this man clearly did not want to umpire anymore. He clearly wanted out of the league for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, the lawsuits and his crusades that they say, so on and so forth. This is where we ended up. And finally, Major League Baseball, after how long of listening to me complain and say, hey, this is what they want to do. So here we go. You know, the true fact is that in this particular situation, I don't care who you are. Do your job. Do it to the best of your ability. If you can't do your job to the best of your ability, then you don't need to be doing it. You know, we've seen it with umpires over the years, and they start to lose a step. Maybe their vision isn't nearly as good, or their judgment isn't nearly as quick as it needs to be. We're talking the highest level of professional baseball here. We're not talking about beer league. Okay, we're not talking about, summer softball league. Okay, we're talking about the highest level of baseball. Come on, you got to get it right. It's the same thing with the NFL and the officiating stuff that's going on over there. You're telling me that everybody that's getting paid what they're getting paid, and here we go? I digress. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. As you can see, behind me, I'm a baseball aficionado. I've played a lot of baseball over the years. I've played just about every single position there is on the field to play. And I know a little bit about baseball. The fact of the matter with Angel Hernandez, where baseball is, the drop-off that they've had, and I know the popularity factor of baseball has decreased significantly. And where we're at now, where baseball is looking up at football, at NFL specifically, it's before too much longer. It's kind of getting that way with the NBA. It's been that way. The NBA is kind of taking a tick back a little bit, but baseball's looking up, and they didn't used to have to do that. Go back. Let's do a little history lesson. Let's go back to the strike during the early 90s, 93, 94. Okay. People had turned away from baseball en masse. I know I did when I was younger and I was watching baseball at that time period. Huge baseball fan during the 80s. Loved watching it. But then the early 90s came, and the strike came, and everything else came and went the way it did. And obviously some of my favorite teams, Cardinals being one of them, really stunk. They were really bad. They kind of back in 92, 93, not horrid bad, but bad enough to where it's kind of like, this is not what we expect. And again, this is the level of expectation that fans that are fans of St. Louis baseball specifically expect greatness. We expect a level that it's always been within the organization and within the fan base. That being said, there was a period of time during the 70s that the Cardinals organization was pretty bad. They had their success in the 80s. During the Whitey ball era, where they learned that speed and defense and getting on base wins you ball games. What a shocker. The fundamental stuff, right? Good defense, solid defense, excellent base running, getting on base. Who would have guessed? It's the fact is that what does it really matter if it's a hit or a walk? If you're getting on base, it's a base. Getting on base is getting on base. I love home runs. Don't get me wrong. I love the slugging aspect. You know that I'm a huge McGwire fan. Everybody that's been watching this show for any period of time, I am a McGwire mark. But home run hitters have their place. That's why they hit in the 4-hole, or that's why they hit in the 3-hole. Typically, in the old world baseball thought, you have your high average, high contact guy that's in the 3-hole. That's what you do. That's how you get these guys that are ahead of them. Your number one out the gate. He's going to be your high contact guy, high speed guy. He's going to get on base, whether it be a bunt or a walk or whatever. He's got really excellent plate vision. He's got really good contact. He can hit the ball into any gap, and he's got a ton of speed, and he can get on base. And why do you want that guy on base at first? Thinking man's game. You don't want to get thrown out at second base. So if you have a guy that, yeah, he can hit, he can get on base, he's got a good average, but is he going to get thrown out at second base whenever your number 2 guy comes up and tries to, split the shortstop and the third baseman and gets a little bit deep in the hole? Or maybe he's a left-handed hitter and he's going to try to, pull it between second and first base. Well, with the shift there for a few years, you had your second baseman basically over the top of your first baseman. So your first baseman can stay and hold the guy on, and he can't come off because he doesn't want to get picked off from the pitcher. And then they have the shift. It just makes it nearly impossible. And that's why they've started to change a lot of these rules. The truth is with baseball has a fundamental rules problem. That's the problem with baseball today. Baseball can't seem to get out of baseball's own way, as to where the NFL has found what's worked and has emphasized on it, has taken that core component of what has given them success and said, this is what makes football football. There's a core component of it. Baseball has lost that identity. Baseball at one point in time was just as American as apple pie. Ice cream and apple pie. Doesn't that sound good? Maybe even a hot cup of coffee. Ooh, let's do that. Come on. I'll take that any day of the week. The truth when it comes to baseball, and especially with someone like myself who looks at the game in the way that I do, I want it to be the way that it was whenever I grew up with that product. And it's not for any other self-serving reason other than I felt that it was more of a mental aspect to the game that added a certain level of interest. What are they going to do? How are they going to do it? It's kind of like, poker or something like that. And you're trying to read the other poker player across the table. They've got a tell or a bluff or something that you see. I cannot tell you how many times that I've gone to just high school baseball games and just watched the players do what they do. I cannot stress how many times I've seen ticks in some of these players that I've seen a tell. And that just comes with all of the years that I've played baseball and watched it. I'll give you an example. It's a story I tell to friends and things of that nature when we talk about being able to see certain things in players and what they do. It's the same thing in football too, but any sport. I was at a high school ball game, and during that game, it was at the very, very first inning, The home team was pitching. And I noticed the pitcher that was on the mound was giving away what he was throwing. And he was getting hammered that first inning. And I had turned to a friend of mine to my right, and I had said, he's got to tell. And he says to me, what are you talking about? I said, he's tipping his pitches. Well, how do you see that? I said, why do you think that they're just teeing off on him? He's been a really good pitcher, up to this point. Now, all of a sudden, these guys are teeing off on him. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, everybody has an off day, don't get me wrong, but they're making him look like he's, a freshman or a sophomore here. I mean, they're just killing him. Well, what's the tell? I said, well, it depends on whether or not he has batters on base, whether he's pitching from the stretch or he's not. He had a double clutch whenever he was throwing off speed and away. You knew exactly what he was going to throw based on how he was clutching the ball. So when he would go to set, he would go clutch, and he would throw an off-speed pitch, whether it was a curveball outside or it was a changeup. He had that tell, and I could see what he was doing, and I knew what he was throwing. So every single time I would go changeup, fastball, breaking pitch, whatever. You could tell by the way that he was clutching his glove. As you see my glove, my fielder's glove over my shoulder. That's what he was doing. And if you pay attention enough to the game, you'll see those things, and that thinking aspect comes into play. Baseball alienated a lot of their fans by going to DH in both realms and taking out the thinking aspect and taking out the managerial aspect of the game. And now you've put the game in the hands of the players and the umpires, which is just what we talked about earlier with the pseudo retirement of Angel Hernandez. It was a settlement. Let's be clear. They wanted him out. He wanted out. He wanted money. Just pay the man. Just pay the man and make him go away. So that way we just don't have to deal with this garbage anymore. It was awful, terrible to watch. My man Kevin says, in some ways, I feel Major League Baseball is trying to go back to the glory days when people actually enjoyed going to baseball games. I like the pitch clock idea and just the thought of speeding up the game. I agree. Wholeheartedly, I agree with that assessment. The game does need to be sped up. A lot of the problems is when these managers and catchers and stuff, they have all these mound visits. And this is back in the day, right? They would go up and then they would go back, and then the manager would come out and then the manager would go back, and then the pitching coach would come out. You get the idea. I don't have to belabor the point, but it really, really just made the game mind-numbingly slow. And now again, I understand the thinking aspect of it when it comes to that. I appreciate more situational managing. Got a guy coming up to bat. We're down by 2 runs. I got a guy on first base. The guy that I have coming up to bat is more of a power guy. The likelihood of him hitting a ground ball versus a pop fly is much, much higher to the pop fly because he's more of a power hitter. Well, he's a pull guy. Well, what are they doing? Well, they're shifting the outfield. Okay, he's a right-handed batter. Well, the likelihood of him hitting a pop fly or a home run is much greater to the pop fly because we're in a bigger ballpark and his power isn't necessarily as you get the idea. You could go through this entire process and you could get to this situational thinking. We could even use that thought process in the NFL, in the UFL, in the CFL. It does not matter. Any sport at all. You have player strengths and you have player weaknesses. And as your job as the opposing team is to benefit from those weaknesses. Take advantage of those weaknesses in order to defeat your opponent. That's the name of the game. So I don't fundamentally agree with a lot of the changes in Major League Baseball, but there are some good ones. Pitch clock being one of them, speeding up the process. But again, when that starts, there's so many different rules. And we've seen it this last couple of years of guys that aren't set in the box, and they do get set in the box, and the guy steps out, and then the pitcher's on the rubber, and then he steps off, and and all these rules of like, is it a balk? Is it not a balk? Did he come set? Did he not come set? Is this part of his shimmy thing that he's got going on? Do I need to point out the pitcher from the New York Yankees, Cortez? He's got a wicked shimmy. Johnny Cueto, for years, had the shimmy, right? There's rules that they try to find those gray areas. I always go back to Conrad Dobler with the St. Louis Cardinals, number 66, who played for the St. Louis Football Cardinals during the 70s and was known and vilified as one of the most hated men in football, one of the dirtiest players to ever play the game. Here's the facts about Conrad Dobler, and this attributes to other players. He operated within a gray area. He knew that he was not as physically talented as a lot of these other players that he was playing against. So he had to utilize tactics that may or may not be frowned upon with some people. Doesn't make it illegal. It just is what we like to call a morally gray area. And he admitted to that. There's no rules. When you're in a scrum in a football field, do they have any rules that regulate certain behavior? A guy accidentally gets a finger in the eye or something like that when they're all rooting around down in there trying to get the football. Now, there are fundamental rules, like you can't, hit a guy between the legs, and you can't do this, you can't do that. There's personal foul, personal conduct. But a lot of stuff happens in those things that you are not aware of. And just simple little things, like a guy could just take the point of an elbow and just drive it right down between your quadriceps, just above your knee. Have you ever been hit like that? Because trust me, I've been hit like that. It hurts. And then you come out next day and you have a great big huge black spot on your leg just above your knee where you're purple and black and blue, where that guy's driven that elbow straight down in between your muscles and hit your bone, and you have this deep bone bruise. Trust me when I tell you, that sucks. And this stuff happens all the time, and guys play hurt all the time. Hell, Ray Lewis, what was it, his second to the last year, or his last year that he was in the league, he basically played with one arm. And you see all these interviews with these players, and they sit there and they talk about, well, this person had an advantage, or I saw somebody that had a tick. They had a tell. Quarterbacks always do. They always have a tell of what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And that is, again, it's an important key component to the game of success. When you watch your next game of any sport, I challenge you to watch it a little closer. Hone in on a certain player that controls the flow of the game. If it's a pitcher, a quarterback, a defensive back, linebackers, a catcher, how he's setting up, what he's doing, all of that stuff. Watch them play. Watch them carefully, because you'll see it. You don't think that these other guys that play at that level, at that height, that they don't see it? Because they do. They see it, and they try to maximize on it. Peyton Manning for years would always come up to the line, and he would come up to the line and he would start going through his play call, or he would, call the play prior to in the huddle and come up to the line, and he would see something. He would start screaming out, Omaha, Omaha. That was all show. If I came up to the line as a quarterback and I saw something that I knew, like somebody that was the mic, and I would see the mic, and I wanted to detail that to my players based off of the routes that I was, okay, now we're going to flip this play, or we're going to transition this, or we're going to put this guy in motion, whatever we're going to do. I'm not going to do the same thing over and over and over again, because if I do, that conducts a pattern, and then the pattern is, you get the idea. Now I have a tell. Now I have a tick. So I'm always trying to adjust. You see that with, again, the previously mentioned pitcher Nestor Cortez over with the Yankees. You've seen that with other pitchers over the years, that they will start to develop different things to transition from the way they used to do. Sometimes it's physical. They have to. Maybe a guy's had Tommy John, right? And so if he's had Tommy John, maybe he can't pitch the same way. Maybe he doesn't have the same, rotation of his arm. Maybe he's coming in higher. He's coming in from a 12-6 with his curveball instead of a 3/4 motion. Because again, all these things are different positioning. I was taught years ago, and we're going to have to close this up because we're coming in on a hard 3. But years ago, whenever I was being taught how to bat, I had an excellent batting coach whenever I was younger. And he always taught me, he's like, listen, if you're batting right, you're batting like this. So for me, I was right-handed. Dominant hand over the top. It's always your away hand leading away. Just always remember, it's positioning of your wrists. It's all in your wrists. It has nothing to do with your stance. Everybody gets it twisted. Your stance really has basically no bearing except for power. Sometimes it does with adjusting, but the reality is that you develop a stance and you develop a bat pattern, okay, that is comfortable to you in your particular scenario and situation. I'm more of an orthodox straight up. I'm kind of more like McGuire to a certain extent, or kind of earlier in his career versus latter in his career, where he was trying to tighten his strike zone because he wanted to make sure the pitchers were throwing balls in an area that he could mash them. But that's how I developed my swing. And as I developed that, I learned it's all about wrist position, where I wanted to put the ball, whether I'm pulling it down third base or I'm squirting it between, second and short, or I'm trying to push it away to go between first and second. Because again, right-handed batter, they're going to shift over. And it all depends on how I'm positioning in the box. Forward in the box, back in the box. Are they getting the curve ball over on me? Well, I need to go back in the box. Or it's just simple stuff like that. Are they throwing stuff low and away? Well, I need to go further into the box. But then again, pitchers will pitch you inside. Well, they're pitching you inside. Well, then step away. It's all fundamentals when it comes to baseball. That's why the box is created. It's all about the wrists. Forward in the box, back in the box. Closer to the plate, further away from the plate. Based off of the scenarios that you're in. I could teach you guys all day about baseball. I could talk all day about baseball and fundamentals. But we're hard out, guys. Thank you. We are going to have a little bit of a format change. We're going to be doing another ticket giveaway for the Battlehawks. We're going to be doing a prime time. I have not set that up yet as far as timing. I've got to get with the bosses over at the Fuel Sports Network, and we got to kind of talk over how we're going to do that and how we're going to maximize the exposure for that, so that way everybody gets a chance at it. But we're going to be doing a primetime show on a giveaway here coming up soon, and we're going to be doing that ticket giveaway. So just to let you guys know and give you a heads up. All right, guys, I'm out. See you next Wednesday. If not, if things haven't adjusted and changed, we're kind of talking about maybe maneuvering this show to a different time slot, maybe something a little bit more friendly later in the evening, prime time slot. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. Thank you, guys. Appreciate everything. Appreciate you guys showing up. Love you guys as always. I'll see you guys next go around next week. See you later.